after the recent sombre atmosphere, how will the coming week in politics play out? Slowly but surely, or bam?
Well, we've got three big events, haven't we? We've got tomorrow, we think there's going to be more support for businesses. We're going to get a bit more detail on how exactly the government is going to save businesses from high energy prices. Then we've got an NHS announcement from Therese Coffey, the new health secretary, the next day. And then on Friday, as you say, we've got this mini budget. So, I mean, it does seem slightly as if all of this stuff's been stored up and it's all going to come at us in one go. And, you know, in Westminster today, political journalists are spending their time trying to find out what's going to be in these announcements. As you said, we do have a fair amount of detail on the energy package already. I mean, you know, it's substantively already been announced. There's some more detail on businesses to come. But there certainly are some bits and bobs left to be cleared up. And I think this is sort of Liz Truss's first opportunity since the energy crisis to showcase what she's got from a policy point of view. I mean, at the moment, she's been doing sort of the stateswoman leadership crisis act that we've seen, you know, while the Queen's funeral has been going on, and now it's kind of back to business, I think.
Business, because there's inter-party arguing. The Conservative chairman of the Treasury Committee has demanded an OBR, Office of Budget Responsibility forecast, alongside that fiscal event, mini-budget, whatever you want to call it. The Conservative chair of that committee says we need to look at the figures, we need to look at the books. Problematic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, and you would expect him to say that, I suppose. You know, you would expect someone in that position to want there to be more scrutiny of what the government's going to announce. I think it's fair to say in Downing Street there is a fair amount of scepticism about the OBR anyway. Now, obviously, the arguments given by Number 10 is to do with timing and the fact that it's not a proper budget. It's only a sort of minor fiscal event, and so it doesn't need the same level of scrutiny as you would normally have for a budget or a spring statement. But I think it is fair that at the top of government at the moment, there is a feeling, and it comes back to what Liam was saying just now about orthodoxy. There is a feeling that the OBR is actually not really any better than the Treasury at this stuff. Is it truly independent from the Treasury? Is it truly independent of government? And does it have the same problems in terms of civil servants who think in a certain way and act in a certain way? There will probably be a feeling in Number 10 that actually it's not really worth getting them to do it anyway, particularly as you look at the last OBR forecast. Earlier on this year, understated the amount of money that the government was going to collect in taxes by several £billion. In fact, actually more than the £12 billion that they're getting out of the national insurance rise. So, you know, perhaps had they got it right, then we may not have needed a national insurance rise in the first place. That is the sort of thinking, that, not my view, but that is the sort of thinking that's going on in Number 10, and I think it's therefore no surprise that they're not exactly bending over backwards to be scrutinised by that same organisation.
When I finally got your title right at the very beginning, Whitehall correspondent, I do apologise again for that, but it does make a very important distinction in the sense that you're not just a political hack looking at the manoeuvrings between the parties and indeed within the parties over these things. You do report on Whitehall as a function of government, all of those government departments up and down, then all on Whitehall, they're all over the place these days. But it's worth reminding folk at home that it's not just Liz Truss, new Prime Minister, it's a new government. I think that Liz is the only member of the Cabinet who served in Cameron's government.
Yes. At
every level, it's virtually new faces, new readers begin here. What does it look like to you as an expert on the functioning of government?
Yeah, well, it's always a very interesting time when that happens, because you see, particularly if you've got a junior minister who's been promoted to Secretary of State level, or you've got someone who's been sitting on the back benches who's not actually been served in the cabinet before, civil servants will immediately start to sort of get a sense of what it is they're after, what they're interested in, what the priorities are, how much of the stuff that was going on under the old administration can carry on again, and all of that sort of work that rumbles on in the background, like you say, that we don't really see in the daily cut and thrust of politics. We don't hear about it at Prime Minister's questions. We don't that much read about it in the newspapers, to be honest, because a lot of this stuff happens behind closed doors. There will be a bit of a reckoning that's happened, I suspect, over the period of mourning that we've just had, where civil servants and ministers are coming to terms with the fact that they've now got to work with each other. I thought it was interesting. There was an interesting piece in the New Statesman this afternoon about the work that Kwasi Kwarteng, the new Chancellor, has been doing behind the scenes. Clearly, he's been using this period of mourning as an opportunity to think deeply about the government's economic policy. We know before that there was a lot of tension between number 10 and number 11 at both official level and also a political level, as you're saying. So it looks as if that relationship is going to be a little easier with Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, but there is always a sort of slight period of I don't know what you call it, the period of people getting used to each other when this stuff happens. And, it's not really an ideal time given the crisis that the country's facing.
Tony, final question to you. This is Liz Truss's first time on the world stage as our Prime Minister. Is it possible to know what success looks like? How do you measure success for a Prime Minister on the world stage?
Well, it's worth remembering that Liz Truss has got quite a lot of experience doing this stuff because of her previous job as Foreign Secretary. And so a lot of the people she'll be meeting at UNGA this week will be people that she already knows or she's had some relationship with or knew their Foreign Secretaries, even if they're heads of state. I think one of the most important things to come out of this week is the relationship between her and Joe Biden. And we already think that might be quite a difficult relationship because of his views on her work in the Foreign Office on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Joe Biden, of course, has Irish ancestry. Irish politics is quite important in Westminster. There's a lot of Irish lobbying that goes on. So, it's fair to say that will be at the top of his agenda. And if she can come away from this conference having given the rest of the world an idea that actually the special relationship is still fully intact and that she can work with Joe Biden, then I would say that's a huge success.